Hi, it's Amy from Mad Dots Art. I thought since it's becoming that time of year where we're having a lot of snow, Christmas is almost here, why not let's do some snowflake design. So I've been having a lot of fun just kind of playing around with different shapes and colors. Snowflakes are so fun to mess around with because, I mean, there's really no wrong way. None of them are, no two are exactly alike, right? So I like the darker colors sometimes, but I thought I would have fun and just experiment with some lighter colors, and maybe these are a little harder to pick up the difference between all the shades. There are multiple shades on there. My colors that I used are Folkart Metallic. This is color 2588 Ice Blue. And a Folkart Brushed Metal, color 5119 Brushed Silver. And DecoArt Americana, this is the Snow Titanium White. And Folkart Metallic number 659 in Pearl White, one of my favorites. And this absolutely stunning Folkart Glitterific Fine, this is 11864, the silver. And it is just stunning the way it shimmers. It's holographic, so beautiful. I actually went and bought a bunch of bottles of that because I like it so much. I also attached on mine some gems that I found at Walmart. Not sure if that's going to translate on camera, but they just shimmer. They're so pretty. That's optional. I think it will look pretty with or without that, especially with our super shiny Glitterific. So the size that I'm working on, because this has the built-up sides, I'm not going to work directly on one of these. I got this at Michael's, and I just painted it black for that, but it's going to be a little bit harder for you to see what I'm doing on that built-up surface, so I'm going to work just on some cardstock that I painted black. And this is a 4.5 inch pattern. So I just went ahead and found the center by placing my ruler end to end and making a mark in the middle, and then I'm using a Happy Dotting Company stencil, but you can use any stencil. We really basically, this will end up with 16 spots, but an 8 would work as well if you only have the 8 segment stencil. We will also be needing rods, so either your acrylic rods. Today I'm going to be working with the DIY mandala stones set that I have, very well used, very full of paint, but I'll try and let you know what size tool that I'm using. And we are going to be using nail dotting tools. Your main set has the pink, white, green, blue, and yellow rods, and I'll keep you up to date on which size and color that I'm using on those. All right, let's jump right in. I am going to start out with the number 16 on the DIY mandala stones. And if you're using the acrylic rods, that's going to be this blue color. And we're starting with our brushed silver. I'm this way today. I usually film this from the wrong side of the table, so I have to go upside down, so, but not today. These Folkart paints, you're gonna need to thin them out a little bit if you're new to them. Usually most of them need a thinning out. So I do recommend pouring medium for that. So it's good to have that handy if you're just starting out or if you're planning to use these thicker Folkart paints. So we're just gonna get a good coverage on the end of that tool. And then we're dipping that right in the middle. If you get a little dimple in there, just dip again and dot lightly right on top. And you want to use paper towel, or if you have an old rig that you're okay with disposing of, just wipe off your tool. And next I'm going to use the pink dotting tool, and I'm going to use the larger side of that, which is a 1.5 millimeter. And we're going to use our white paint. Any white paint you have is fine. You could also do this pattern in darker colors if you prefer. So for these, I am going to dip in the paint for each dot, and I'm leaving a little space in between so that I can put micro dots later. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I like to just sneak some smaller dots in between. Just kind of estimate where those will fall. We're going to stay with that same white color, but move up one tool size to the white tool, the larger side of the white tool. And now instead of stacking them right on top of each other, I'm going to go in between the space that the smaller row of dots made. So we're kind of staggering. Again, try not to let your dots touch each other, so just kind of hover it above and in between. Show that a little bit clearer. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so now I'm going to move up to a dotting rod. And the DIY Mandala Stones tools, this is going to be a number 6. And for the clear rods, this is your smallest clear rod. And I'm going back to the brushed silver color for this. Yeah, we're just gonna do one more row. Oops, I guess I can use this one. And again, we're just staggering that in the gap that lines up on the row below. Wipe off your tool. Great. All right, so if you watched my last video with the Christmas wreath design, or Christmassy design, this will look familiar to you, the next part. We are gonna stick with that same size 6 tool, or the smallest acrylic rod. And now we're going to go with the ice blue, Folkart metallic ice blue. And so here's where, for me, 8 would have been fine, 8 lines. I will use those in between lines a little bit later, but on the segments that would make up your 8, so if you think of it like a clock, like a 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then we're going to go right in between those for 4 segments. We're going to do this design on those 8 lines. So we're basically making a little diamond shape. So 4 dots on each. And I like to rotate to work those clock locations first. It just helps me to visualize. Even though I have lines, I always still kind of assess where I want to place the in-between parts. So we'll get our 4 quadrants, if you will, on there first. Now, just because the stencils, they can move or shift a little bit, this is where I kind of just want to make sure before I place my paint on there to see if that line that I'm looking at is going to be lined up, which this came out pretty good. So I'm going to go right on the line. And then I'm going to kind of line up right across. And here, if you just had an 8-point stencil, this is, you can kind of just eyeball these in-between lines. But basically, we're just going kind of halfway in between where the 4 quadrants are. Okay, and then I'm going to use that same tool, but we're going to go back to our brushed silver. And I'm just going to put 1 dot right in between my middle dots here. Kind of ties them together nicely so there's not a big gap in there. Okay. So next I'm going to use the nail stylus tool, and I'm using the smaller end of that tool, which is a 1. And we're going to go ahead with the white paint, Snow Titanium White. And now for this, we're going to do a little swoosh action. I'm going to put this near the bottom of where I made those blues, or near the bottom of the middle dots, I guess you could say, and drag it in at an angle. And then I'm going to do the same on the top. Anywhere in there is fine. It's a little crowded. Oops, that one didn't quite drag enough. I'm just going to dip a little more and drag it a little. They don't have to touch at top or bottom, just kind of giving the illusion that they're kind of boxed in. Whenever you're dragging your paint, you just want to make sure you have a nice little pool of it before you drag. So if you ever feel like you don't have enough, just dip again before you start to drag it. Sometimes it's hard to gauge until you work with the paint for a little bit. We don't have a lot of snow here where I'm at in northeast Wisconsin yet, but I'm sure it's on the way. In Wisconsin, we don't usually get away with not having snow for too long in winter. Okay, that was fun. Now I am going to switch to the bigger end of the white tool, and we're going to use the ice blue. Hopefully that shows up. And now right above where I made my little diamond shape, I'm going to make a little trio of dots, kind of in the triangle shape. You may find that you don't have to redip for these. When I know I'm going to make 3 dots close together like this, sometimes I'll just dip extra on my tool and then just lightly tap the first one so that it spreads out that paint a little more evenly. But you can certainly redip for each dot too. I'm just basically looking for similar shape, size on each one. Some of these thicker pearl metallic paints are what they call a heavier body. So maybe thicker is not a great word for it, but they have more volume to them. And they can stretch a little bit more than the thinner paints are a little bit more water-based and evaporate quicker, so you usually have to dip a lot more frequently. Oh, we're still gonna use that same color. I'm gonna flip my tool over to the smaller side of the white tool, and then we're just gonna make an extra swoosh on the outside. So you can have fun with this, maybe put a curve in it if you don't want them so straight. Whichever you like better. I think I have a little curl in mine. So just as they reach that middle segment, I'm just pulling up just a hair to give it a little curve. Cute. I like it. Now, I'm going to add a little detail on the middle segment. Here's where those micro dots come in. And we're going to use the white, that Snow White Titanium. We're going to use the smaller end of the pink tool. So now I'm basically making 2 dots in between each colored row here. So I'm going to do 2 here 2 in between this row of dots and 2 in between that row of dots. And just do that all the way around. And I just try to line them up top to bottom. Kind of line them up with what's above it in the middle. I shouldn't have re-dipped. You won't need to re-dip on these unless your paint is really thick or dry. You should be able to walk these up. The whites are usually a little bit thinner, so they're usually going to go a little farther without re-dipping. Small little detail, but I think it makes it look really nice. Okay, now I'm gonna take my number 6, which is the smallest clear rod, and we're gonna use the pearl white. And for this, I'm just going to put it in this little gap that we have. In between our boxes, if you will. Oops, that's not a good shape. Tool coated better. I have my pearl white thinned out quite a bit. You'll notice for some reason this one in particular tends to get kind of thick and cloddy, stringy on me. So I put a lot of my pouring medium in there before I started, just to help it be a smoother dot. Okay, next I'm going to use my watercolor pencil. I really just want to make a shape, so I have a little bit of guidance on here. So I'm going to take from about the middle of this trio up to where that line meets my outer rim. This is just freehand. If you don't have the lines like I do, just kind of, it's gonna match up with where that gray dot is. Just kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But for me, since I have this already out there, I'm just gonna use my guidelines. Watercolor pencils erase with a damp cloth or Q-tip, so they're really nice to have. That way you can keep your lines with their symmetry, but still kind of erase that in the end. Fantastic. So next I'm going to use the large side of my white tool, and we're going to start with the brushed silver color. So get a good amount on there, and kind of right in that middle we're going to make a big dot and swoosh it down all the way around, a little pull and pull it to the center. If you're new to swooshes, I do have a video available to help you learn how to do those. This is another paint that I definitely have to add pouring medium to in order to get it to move the way that I want it to. Okay, I'm going to keep that same larger side of the white tool, and I'm going to do my next swooshes in the ice blue. And so you basically just want to follow your arch, or that angle that you are on, and just pull it towards the center of the silver. Big dot and pull, push as it were. It's so much quieter when the furnace turns off. Very nice. Oops. Make sure I have enough on my pool there to pull it. The more paint you get, the bigger your swoosh will be and the longer it can go. We don't have to travel too far, so you don't have to get a ton. I am going to stay with that same size, larger end of the white tool, and we're going to move over to the pearl white color for our last bit of swoosh on this one. And we're doing the same exact thing here, just kind of starting where that line is and dragging it towards the center. Since I thinned this one out, it takes a little bit extra. There we go, that's a really good one. So I get a lot. When I'm doing a swoosh, I usually swirl my tool in the paint to get a lot on there. Cover up. Okay, I like that a lot. All right, so next I am going to use that same large side of the white tool, and we're going to use the white paint, Snow Titanium. And now for this, I'm going to make a diamond shape here. I have to stop and look at my pattern again. So use your same four diamonds, kind of, And then near where the bottom one is, just drag that out. Oh, I just did that wrong. So I guess it's good. You get to see me fix a mistake. Wet Q-tip, and I'm just going to erase that like it never happened. And then I'm gonna go back and make an actual diamond shape instead of a box. That, drag those out. And we're gonna stay with the same tool, same size. So now we're gonna kind of use this top part of the diamond to make another diamond. And I'm just going to follow this with the second one from the top. And I'm going to go up a third one. So for each row in the diamonds, it should have one swoosh. And you can do these dots all at once if you're so inclined. And the swooshes for that matter, since they're all the same tool size. And you'll probably find that some of them don't fit perfectly on the top. That's okay. Ooh, that one got a big glob of paint. I might be getting a little low. Get some more paint in my pot. These paint pots I just get off Amazon, and they're super helpful in keeping your paints fresher. If you're using just a paint palette, you'll find that your paint starts to get kind of thick kind of early on. These soft body acrylics have a lot more water in them, so they kind of evaporate quickly. that water evaporates off quickly. And that starts to change the consistency of your paint. So I like the paint pots because then I don't have to throw away as much paint. I can just cover it when I'm not using that color. All right, I like that a lot. Okay, so that leaves us with some space to fill in. You can certainly leave it like that if you want. It's kind of a cute shape. But with my original pattern, I did fill in a little bit more on there. So this is totally optional. I kind of just extended these lines that match up with our blues. Again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this. You don't have to measure it all up unless you really, really like to. It's just going to give me some guidelines for my next row of whatever you want to call that fans. And then I'll just make it kind of easy here. So basically we're going to do the same thing with the fans on this row. And that I kind of want them to line up. I'm forgetting my own pattern. So I'm going to take the dots or kind of the top of our last row. Let's do that. The top of our last swoosh, and guide it towards the middle line. Now we're a little bit off we're going to be a little bit off the corners, and that's okay. You can still do a partial. I hope my head's not in the way. Okay, that's at roughly the same spot all the way around. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. So we're going to do the same pattern that we did on these. So large side of the white tulle, and we're going to start with that brushed silver in the middle. And we're just going to make our swoosh in there. Make sure we have enough in there. These are going to travel a little bit farther. So the ones that are going off the page, I tried to not dip quite as much because we're only going to do half a swoosh on those. They kind of are not long enough to all be on the page. But the one where I can actually see the top of the triangle, I'll add a little extra paint so it can go farther. They end up being a little bit longer. Okay, we're gonna stay with that same size tool, the big end of the white tool, and we're gonna move over to our ice blue. Hopefully that's easy to see. And more swooshes. Again, we can use that line as our guide for where to start. And then we're gonna end up where the silver one ends. And you probably guessed the next step is same size tool, large end of the white, and we're going to use that pearl white. Just got paint on my hand from my paper towel. And do another good swoosh in there. If you have a lot of space left like I do, you could definitely fill that in with repeating a color in there, more blue or more gray, or you could go back in with some glitter. Typically I use my glitters for topping on top of another color, but they do look really pretty on their own as well against the black. Kind of reminds me of stars in the sky. Alright, so last little touch on the main design. I'm going to switch over to the small end of that. Actually, I'm going to go down to the small end of the pink tool, and we're going to be using the white. And close up this other color. And I'm gonna just make one little dot first on top of these little fan pieces, and then I'm gonna come in and make a swoosh, just a quick, small, pointy swoosh. So I'm not dipping a ton of paint on there, just a little bit. And now these we're not gonna really get to see much of, so I'm just gonna not re-dip every time. You can put them in different directions. Give them a little swirl if you want. That's kind of the fun part where you get to make it your own. Make some smaller and some longer. Okay, that's our main design. So you want to always make sure that you're not doing any top dotting until these are dry. So I went ahead and pre-did one to this point. Once yours is dry, you can come back in. Here's where that spectacular Glitterific paint is going to come in. This stuff is very, very, very thick. And this bottle here is probably a year old. So you will need some pouring medium. Otherwise, it's just going to stick right to your tool. It's like glue almost. But it's also very, very sensitive to pouring medium. So you want to make sure that you just add like one little drop at a time. So for our center dot, I'm going to use a size 12. And that's going to translate to the purple rod if you're using the acrylic guys. And we're using that Glitterific Fine. I actually have mine a little bit on the too thin side. Put a little bit too much pouring medium in there. So I'm going to be kind of cautious. But just kind of aim for the center. And you can always take a smaller tool and move it around if it didn't get where you want it, if it's kind of off to the side. I think mine came out kind of good, so I'm going to leave it right where it's at. And then I'm going to use, I don't have an acrylic rod in a size 4, so I'm going to use the large end of the blue tool, and we're going to top dot on this bigger row around the middle. So just dot. I'm dipping for each one. Your dots will be easier to control if you don't get yours as thin as I got this. This is pretty soupy. Oop. So one way I can combat that, I'll probably leave the container open for a little bit so some of the moisture can evaporate. And then for this, I'm just gonna try and pick up some of that I just kind of made a little oopsie on there. Some of it kind of fell off. So I'm just gonna kind of try and scoop it up with my tool. Or I just got these funky little silicone tools. I think they're meant for working with clay or fondant, but they are kind of handy in cleaning up little mistakes on here. That worked pretty good actually. So these I got off Amazon. They just have little dotting tools on one side and then like a silicone piece on the other side. And then you can just kind of take your tool and move that around so it makes more of a round spot on there. Nobody will know. You can put as much as you want on as many dots as you want. I'm not going to affix the jewels today, just because of time. But I will say what I used to put those, to get them to stick, was just my gloss varnish that I use on most of my projects to seal. This is DuraClear, DecoArt Americana DuraClear. You can use the gloss or the, they have satin, they have matte, and they have a high gloss. I just use the regular gloss one. And then for the little jewels that I have, I got this kind of waxy pencil at Walmart as well. Is where I got the jewels. And it really just kind of sticks onto the jewels so you can pick it up nice and then just put them on there for that. Totally optional. I think it's kind of pretty. I'm a sucker for sparkles. So that is it, I think. If you have any questions that I didn't answer in the video, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. I hope you had fun making your little snowflake. Enjoy, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks.